Good day, Africa. My name is ZoeBaraka, and today we're on the couch with the AfriWomen Network. We've decided to call this one the Founding Mothers, African Women Shaping Legacy. We've talked for a while now about AfriWomen and the AfriWomen Network and what it means and where it came from. And throughout all the interviews you have heard the name Maame. It's come up many, many, many times. And Maame is many things to many people. She is a mentor, she is a friend, she is a sister, she is annoying pusher that just there's a word for that, but I can't remember it. There's a word. When I find it, I will tell you. But the long and short of all this intro is that Maame is here on the couch with me today, and she's going to tell us the story of the AfriWomen Network in her own words and how it all came about. Now, this is going to be very conversational. Again, I always tell people that Google is your friend, right? When you hear a name as powerful as Maame Afon Yelbert-Sai, you want to Google it. You want to be able to find out a lot about her all on your own, because it does add on to your knowledge and your wealth of wisdom. And so we'll give you a moment to do that Googling, but whilst you're doing that, we'll let Maame herself also just come on board, and we're just going to have a conversation. It's the AfriWomen Network story, basically. So who is Maame Afon? How did she come into the AfriWomen Network? What is the AfriWomen Network? Where is it going? Why are we going there? And she's going to answer all of those questions for you and for me. So Maame, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Boy, you look tired.
I am tired.
What's going on there? Why are you tired?
I just got back from a trip to the Western region. But
when you say Western region of Ghana?
The Western region of Ghana, which is my home region. This is where my family is from, particularly my maternal side.
Right.
So, so I went to take care of some business.
Wait, business in quotes.
Business.
Okay.
And it was too late to drive back yesterday. So I woke up at we left around 4:30 and drove down from Disco, all the way from Disco, that area. I'm an Ahanta girl, so my husband calls me the Ahanta princess.
Ooh, I like it.
Which is not like a lie, it is true, because I come from the royal family.
I would actually be like maybe the Hunter lioness, but you know what? we could stay with princess for a minute, because it's cute. Well, tiredness and all, thank you for showing up, because that's what we do at the AfriWomen Network.
That's right.
We show up, right?
Yes.
No matter what, we show up.
That's right.
But so over the last couple of interviews, I've been talking to some of our founding mothers. We talked to Abigail Bergeson. We talked to Professor Emerita Abenabuzia. And now we're going to be talking to you. And they all told us stories about how the AfriWomen Network came to be. I, for one, have learned so many things that I didn't know before. But I want to hear it from you in your own words and from your perspective, because I know it's a very unique perspective. How did AfriWomen become AfriWomen? First of all, actually, give me a little bit about your background. Who is Maame Afon?
That's a question I get a lot. And people often ask you, who are you?
Yes,
and,
who are you?
Where do you come from? All of that. But in a nutshell, I often describe myself as a whole woman. And in 2009, at that time, I was working at the Global Fund for Women in San Francisco with the Africa program. And I just had my twin daughters, I was a young mom.
Wow.
And, I was working and trying to bring all the pieces of myself together. What I noticed was that for most of us as women, we often live our lives in silos, and so, or in compartments.
Right.
So you might show up at work and you are the career woman. You get home and you are the mom, you are the partner, the wife, you are the sister. And sometimes we live these identities in isolation. So we live in those isolated ways. But what I was looking for was an opportunity to bring my whole and full self, where I would merge my passion, my giftings, my calling, my roles, whether it's professional or just being a mom or a partner or a wife, bringing all those things and merging them together as one. And I had the unique opportunity to go through a leadership program with, at the time, called the Global Women's Leadership Network, which was based out of Santa Clara University. And the program was called the Women Leaders for the World. And I encountered this word, whole woman.
Wow.
Whole leader, whole world. And the more I experienced those words, they came alive for me. And I began to think about this idea of wholeness, where it is whole, right? It is a whole where there are no cracks or breakages, but it's this idea of a circular space where everything fits within that circle. So I embodied this idea of a whole woman, a whole leader, whole world. And I became an evangelist for it. And now I have been on a journey since 2009, really creating and building space for others to bring their whole and full selves. Over the course of that, since that encounter, my consultancy, MILT, which stands for Mindsets for Impactful Leadership and Transformation, my tagline is transforming leaders for a whole world. And so that whole idea of wholeness. And for me, when I think about being a whole woman or a whole leader, it is about bringing all of who you are to every experience, to every space, and to every opportunity. And so when you see me, you don't see me coming in compartments. You don't see me bringing my one side of me. Especially now, if you think of Gen Z, it's always like you do your selfie and, you show the good side of your face and you leave the others out. But in a time where we think about emotional intelligence, we are realizing that your fears and your tears, your trials and your triumphs, your failures and your successes, they are equally important because the sum of all those pieces come together to make you the authentic person that you are. So when I talk about being a whole woman, it is that I bring my fears and my tears, my trials and my triumphs. I bring my failures. I bring my vulnerability. I bring my curiosity. Growing up in Ghana, they tell you curiosity killed the cat.
Yeah.
But I have learned that it didn't kill the cat, it enlightened the cat.
And the cat flew away.
And the cat went all over the world, right? And so I bring my curiosity, I bring my humor. When you get to know me, you realize that I have a wicked sense of humor. I can be very goofy, at the same time very serious. I can, I'm very nimble in that sense, and I can traverse, different spaces, but bringing my full and total self. And I think if the world has people who will bring their full selves, it would be a different place. And that's been my mission and my journey. And so whatever opportunities I find myself being given to steward, whatever things that are placed in my hand to steward, my goal is that we can all bring our whole, full, authentic, true selves. Because when we do that, we inspire others and we come alive in powerful ways. And it's a beautiful thing to watch that unfold. So.
And I like that you say that, because I think it's not just even women, humans in general.
That's
we
right.
have learned to compartmentalize a lot. And
That's right.
we forget that being a mother can inspire you to be a filmmaker.
That's right.
And you can be a mother whilst you're on set.
That's right.
Now, that's something I should definitely take away from this conversation,
Yeah.
right? And then you can be a friend whilst
Yes.
on set. And you can
Yes.
be all those things, and so
Yes.
you can bring your whole self to it.
Yes.
But now that you've told us who Maame Afon is, now who is Maame Afon in relation to the AfriWomen Network? Take us to the very, very beginning. You know, when Dr. Buzia was here, she talked to us about how, or she told us about how they had ambushed you in your home. So take us all the way back there. What were you feeling? How were you feeling? How did you even become the name that was thrown about, like, we have to go talk to this woman in her home? So what were your very early memories? And, you know, let's just go.
Yeah. Well, for me, there are a few things that I'm very passionate about. I'm passionately African, unapologetically woman, and really called to raise and nurture leaders. And so if I put all those things together, women, Africa, leaders, and of course I'm a singer, so my music is it's interwoven into all of that. With all those things together, I am strategically and intentionally positioning myself often, you know, in spaces that will give me opportunities to activate or
all
to do
those.
work in those spaces. And so in 2006, you know, at the time, I was working at the Global Fund for Women, working for the Africa program. And through that, I got a lot of exposure just doing work that is supporting African women, mobilizing resources, raising awareness, doing advocacy work, speaking up, training, sometimes often going to grantee partners and seeing what the resources we put in their hands, how they were using that. Because at the Global Fund, one of the things we said, or we would often say, is that women hold the solutions in their hands. But often those solutions are not deployed because of the lack of resources. Right. And the whole idea was to really mobilize these resources and put the resources in the hands of women, because they are the agents of change, and often they are on the ground and they see firsthand what's going on within their communities, and they have those solutions in their hands, and we want to activate that. And so through that, you know, my activism began. And when I think of activism, it actually takes me back, you know, without any connection. Perhaps there is a connection. But I remember when I was, after I finished high school here in Ghana, I decided that I wanted a different experience with my education. So I went through the process of applying to colleges outside. Initially, I was going to go to England, and things didn't work out. And I ended up finding myself in the U.S. I went to school in Iowa, you know, in the Midwest, in the heart of the Midwest. And once I got there, I found that my Africanness became very strong, because being outside of home in Ghana, being outside of the continent, you know, there were questions people will ask you, there were things people will say to you, and you wonder, why are they asking me? Some of them were really ignorant questions, right? But the more I found ways to answer them, the more I didn't realize that I was building my activism. And so, similar to my work at Global Fund, as I sat in these spaces, spoke to different women and talked to them, I realized that I was building my capacity and the things that were already there, the innate desires that I had, or the leanings that I had towards women and leaders in Africa. It was kind of really building and growing and strengthening, right? Getting bigger and clearer for me that I am definitely in the right place, sitting in the right spaces, doing the right things that I'm passionate about and called to do. And so it was through that experience that I connected to the African Women's Development Fund, AWDF, at the time. And I have found aunties and mothers and mentors and big sisters in that space who have all, accumulation of that has brought me to where I am. And so within that space, then that opened the doors for other women that I met. And each woman is connected to a network or another space. And then you have that ripple effect of spaces coming in. So that's how I connected with AWDF. And I remember sometimes I would come to Ghana and I'd go to Auntie BC's office, and the way she would engage me.
So Auntie BC was in Ghana?
Yes,
okay.
When she was the CEO, ED for, and one of the co-founders of AWDF.
She lived
when
in
she was
Ghana.
the president, CEO, ED, however you choose to describe that, she was based here in Ghana.
Okay, got it.
So when I would come, I would go to the office in East Legon, where the office is, and just being in those spaces, I would watch some of these women. As a much younger Maame, I would watch, and I was like, wow, just getting inspiration and being poured into and learning from them. So it was through these spaces that once AWDF USA was formed, some of the other women that I had connected with now brought me into the AWDF USA space.
Okay.
And I've been in that space, I don't know, since, gosh, I don't even remember. It's been too long. But I would say, yeah, it's been quite long. And being in that space, there has been an evolution of AWDF USA. Originally started, as a friends of, also to serve as a vehicle to mobilize resources and send those resources to support what AWDF is doing on the ground across the continent. And so being in that space, I served in different capacities at the time under the leadership of Jackie Copeland. We had these regional, how would you call it? Regional pieces, like regional pieces. So we had the West Coast, we had Midwest, based in Chicago. We had some, I think, in Seattle, the Pacific Northwest. And I was the co-chair along with another African-American woman called Gloria Brown. So I was the co-chair for the West Coast Regional Advisory Group. Yes, that's what it was, the Regional Advisory Group. But it was meant to create smaller, almost like a cell, right? Smaller units of engagements to do this work. So that's how my initial engagement happened. And at that time I was much, much younger, and you had all these older women who were in this space. So I was watching and learning, and also bringing a lot of humility, because sometimes to learn, you need to bring humility. You could think that you know it all, but there's always an opportunity to learn something new. And so I went through that process. And then eventually I was invited to sit on the board. And I remember one of my first board meetings, we were in Chicago. I was with Auntie Abby and a few others, and so building my Auntie Abinabuzia, building my relationship, still learning and watching, and there were times I was a bit shy, but I'm naturally not a shy person. Like I am like, I'm fire. So I learned in those spaces. And then there were different transitions that was happening for AWDF USA. At some point, Jackie Copeland, who was then the ED, resigned. And then some of the board members who were all supporting at that time, some also, moved on to do other things.
Right.
And a few of us remained, including myself, Auntie Abby, Ima Gordon, Patra, A few African American, and then some of us African women, particularly Ghanaian women. And so that phase also happened, and we did different things, holding it together. But I realized that people like Auntie Abi and Patra and Ima, they were also holding different things. And I believe in seasons, and seasons come and seasons go. And it's important to know what season you're in. And know how to leverage and maximize any season that you are in, because if you don't recognize the season you are in, you might miss out on so many things. And so as I watched and I saw the season, I knew that things were shifting. And then soon after, Auntie Abi Buzia, was named ambassador and based in Brazil, but overseeing all of South America. So she had quite a big job.
Wow.
And prior to that, what I noticed was that she had been intentional about her mentorship for me, with me. Sometimes you say, I will do it with you. I'll watch you do it. I'll do it with you. I'll watch you do it, and then I'll let you do it by yourself. So we went through that process of our mentorship. And I remember one time she was visiting California, and I picked her up from the airport, hung out with her a little bit, and that was when she said, I want you to take this, and I'm looking at it and I'm like,
what though?
Take this, like AWDF USA,
So at that time it was
at that time she was the board chair.
Okay, and it was still
DF USA. So she asked me, that I should take it, and in fact all the others were like, you're the only one who we can see can hold this, and I didn't know what to do with it. But for me, when I think about my work as a woman of faith, as somebody with a relationship with God, I believe that things just don't happen, but things are divinely orchestrated, and it's part of my purpose-driven life. So I didn't take it for granted. I didn't take it lightly. I was like saying to myself, okay, what am I going to do with this? And I remember telling myself, this is not going to die in my hand. At the time, it was still AWDF USA, but that also began the journey of reimagining, the journey of revisioning or envisioning what this could become. Because having been in the space for quite some time, it was clear that there were a few things that needed to shift. Some being subtle, some being significant, right? So there were subtle things that we did, and some of them were things to keep the organization going.
Like what?
As in AWDF, really, for example, we would often convene during existing conferences, such as the Commission on the Status of Women, and we would use the lens of mentorship, intergenerational engagement, to meet at CSW, which is organized by UN Women at UN headquarters in New York. So would meet often there. In the past, would have board meetings for AWDF USA. And during CSW, sometimes AWDF members from AWDF would be present. And so we would have these collective conversations to see what's the strategy forward, what's the way forward, how can we work together better, with AWDF. So that's how we did some of these convenings. And one of the organizations that I've also had the privilege of working with since 2011 is the Moremi Initiative for Women's Leadership in Africa. And in short, we call it the My Lead Fellowship. And what the My Lead Fellowship does is to bring young women between the ages of 19 and 25 from across the continent to really experience a leadership growth. We didn't think of them as the future leaders, but like leaders now, and how do we invest in young women and give voice and agency to what they were doing. And so a lot of them will also come to CSW, and that's how we would bring the young women together, bring the AWDF space together. And I remember we had meetings where we were in Auntie Abby's hotel room, in her living room, in her hotel room. That was one of our first meetings.
Wow.
And I still have pictures
still
of that.
As
AWDF USA. This was in 2016 or 2015, I remember. Either 2015 or 2016, and I called some of the fellows were around. I put them together. I called some of my mentors, different, and we all sat in Auntie Abby's living room, just like a similar space like this. It wasn't, a regular hotel room, and I still have some of the pictures, and that's when this idea of gathering. So at first we called it the Women Train program, because that was a Moremi initiative.
That's a good word. I like that word.
Yeah, women mentoring, right?
Women
and it was that was a Moremi initiative name, So we kind of used that, and I believe in building on things and not creating things, just creating things for the sake of creating things. And so, if there are things that you can build on, why don't you invest in and build it? So we used that, but over time, as we got clarity for AWDF USA, things evolved and we called it something different. So that's how, some of that process came to be, building, connecting, we're mentoring, and then we had, I think it was like a board meeting we had in 2017. And in that board meeting, it was a strategic session that we had. We realized that it wasn't enough to be just a pass-through. So pass-through being, there are some organizations or funders who do not fund directly on the continent. But if an organization had a partner based in the US, for example,
then they would fund
that organization, and then they pass through the resources to their partner on the ground.
Wow.
And that was a big part of AWDF USA. That was a big part of why AWDF USA was created, to be a vehicle for that. So we looked at that and realized what could be some meaningful, substantial ways that we can create programming, to begin to serve African women, Black women, right, across different areas, because often being in this development space and philanthropy, one of the things I've heard people say is, "Oh, we are serving women in the global South," right? You'd go to a funder, for example, to look for resources, and they say, "Oh, our focus is on women in the global South." So basically across the continent and stuff. But I'm thinking then, I'm like, African women are not a monolith. The fact that my location has changed doesn't change anything about who I am as an African woman. So I could be in Australia, I would still be African.
Yeah.
I could be in Canada, I would still be African. I could be in Indonesia.
Doesn't matter where you are, you will be an African.
I will still be African, because who I am and what that identity comes with doesn't change. But because of that narrow focus on African women, like women in the global South, and so those on the continent, I noticed that a lot of African women in the diaspora, particularly in the Caribbean, in the Americas, in Europe,
yeah,
nobody was paying attention. But what I noticed is that being in the diaspora in the US, in Europe, and other places, comes with more burden. You have to navigate being African, just being woman. Just the identity of being a woman. We are still fighting for women's rights as we sit here. So just being a woman comes with unique challenges. Being African comes with unique challenges. Being an immigrant comes with unique challenges, and I'm blanking out on the last one, right? All of those things, they come with their unique challenges.
And so you happen to find yourself in a space where you're navigating all four, or for now, all three.
Exactly. Right? Because at any given time, you are when I think about when I went to school in Iowa and people were asking me questions. I remember a professor came to me and said, I was going to take a test. And he said to me, since English is not your first language, take all the time you need
my sweet Jesus.
Yes, take all the time you need to write the exam. And I'm like,
who said that? Who told you that?
So right there, that is being African.
Moment. Yes.
That's a stereotype. People think you can't speak English when, in fact, you speak better English than most of them put together, right? Being immigrant, people will ask you questions like, how did you get here? I remember somebody asked me how I got to school. And I said, well, I called the Eagle. I sat on the back of the Eagle and we crossed the Atlantic Ocean. I did. We crossed the Atlantic Ocean.
Let me guess. This person literally probably believed you for a moment until they realized you were being sarcastic.
Of course. Of course, you had to put a little bit of fun and spin to it. But you'd get questions like that, like, did you live in a house? I said no.
No, we swung from trees.
I lived on a tree. I'm on the first branch. The American ambassador is on the second branch. The third branch is empty since we like rent free, free. Buy one, get one free. You can stay on the third branch for free when you visit. Right.
Whoa.
So there are questions like that that you would get. Sometimes, even when I was working at the Global Fund, sometimes we'll go out for outreach and we are speaking. These are people I supervise. And I'm an African woman, but we enter a space and
they would go straight to the other person.
They would go to some of my white colleagues and they would be asking them questions, and then they will redirect them and say, go to Maame, she will be able to answer. And of course, then when they come, oh my gosh, you're so awesome, yay. I'm like, yay, you too, right? But these are
you said yay, you too?
Yes, I say yay, I just switch. I'm blagging,
Oh my God.
Right, but these are when I talk about these challenges.
You bring in your caucasity? Is that the word?
Yes. Right, but these are the challenges that, just the identities I just mentioned, right? Being African, being woman,
being immigrant.
Being immigrant. There's one more and I'm blanking out on it. All of those things, they come with unique sets of challenges. But because there is a narrative, there's a single story that's often told about, let's help the women in the global south, let's help the African women on the continent. I noticed that African women who were in the diaspora, particularly in the US, in Europe, in Australia, other spaces, Canada, wherever you might find them, nobody was paying attention.
And the worst part to this story, or this line of thinking for me, is how, I think a year or two ago, there was a report about the amount, the remittances that come back home to, the continent from, the U.S. and the western parts of the world. And it was almost 2 or 3 billion a year. It's
actually more.
And half of these people sending the money are women, African women in the diaspora, who are sending tons and tons and tons and tons of money back into families, back into businesses, back into education and liberation efforts and all kinds of things. And you are right. They're always almost at the fringe or the peripheral of help, because nobody actually says, oh, you might need help too.
That's right.
What they say is,
that's right.
You're there, you must be okay.
Exactly, because sometimes you send the resources and we often say people think that you plug the money from trees. People have expectations, they have entitlements, and I think unfortunately because some of the remittance systems are not institutionalized, it's very easy for it to fall through the cracks.
Right.
So you might not be able to see how much, but if you really systematized and institutionalized these processes, you'd realize like the contributions that African women in the particularly African women,
right.
you know, the contributions we
One
make.
time I looked at my Sendwave statement or something like that inside of maybe like 6 or 8 months. And do you know how much I had remitted? $6,000.
That's right.
I was sitting there going, I don't even have that.
How did that happen?
Like, how did that even happen? And I didn't even have a major project, which is ridiculous. But so that's what we're talking about when we talk about the AfriWomen Network. So now, in the space of the story, you are now still at AWDF USA.
Yeah, it's still AWDF USA. And so that's how we were visioning, you know, what kinds of programming we wanted to create for AWDF USA to be meaningful beyond being a pass-through.
Okay.
Right. And so looking at that, we realized that people were looking for community.
Yes.
So there was a lot of isolation. People were scattered all over. But the few times that we came together, people didn't want to go. We found each other and we were supporting each other. So that was like, in my head, I was like, okay, that's something to pay attention to. The other thing that we also noticed was that people talking about wellness. So whether it's mental health, psychological, you know, just some kind of support system, an ecosystem of support where people can come in and be seen, feel loved, feel heard, you know, it was needed. And then the third piece that I noticed that people were often looking for is this idea of leadership development. How do you improve yourself? How do you enhance yourself? How do you build your capacity to be more, to be effective, you know, to have impact, right? And not just exist and be there, right? So all of these things now we began conversations. And so anytime we would have a gathering, whether at CSW or other existing spaces, we would take a survey and, you know, survey some of the women there to ask what are some of the pressing needs that you are experiencing, that, you know, if you had the opportunity for those needs to be addressed, you know, you would bring it to the table. And these three things that I mentioned, the idea of community, because people were isolated and scattered, the idea of wellness, you know, on all fronts, and then the idea of leadership development. And within that leadership development is this idea of women being entrepreneurs. I can't tell you the number of African women, some of my sisters in the US, who are business owners, entrepreneurs, and some of their work actually benefits sisters on the continent, on the ground. Whether it's in Ghana, Nigeria, Togo, Rwanda, Burkina Faso, wherever, Senegal, name it. These women are doing work and really bringing it back to the continent. And so I started to challenge that idea, that narrative, that single story, that, you know, our focus is on African women, on, you know, women in the global south. And I'm like, what about us?
Well, like,
what about us? Nobody is seeing us. And even when it comes to leadership opportunities for conferences, they'll often be very specific and say it's for women from specific countries. If you were based in the US, or you're based in Canada, or you're based in, you know, somewhere in Europe, often they wouldn't give you these opportunities. I remember there are fellowships that I wanted to apply to, but I didn't qualify.
Many of them because you don't live on the continent.
Yes, because so there's an assumption. And I wanted to challenge that assumption, because that assumption was detrimental to us as African women, because the opportunities that were supposed to extend to us wasn't coming, and I almost felt like we're becoming extinct, basically, and nobody was seeing us. So that was at the core of what I started envisioning. And I believe that, you know, no one is called to go alone. And my friend Nana Kofi, he says, it is in the collaborative space that ideas come alive and gain momentum. Right. So I realized, okay, if this is going to happen, then I need other sisters. So, and because one of my core values is authentic relationships. So if you know me, you will notice that I don't play with my relationship. I'm very, very intentional about my relationships, how I invest in them, and I will go in. I don't just dip my toes in
the water.
I go with my footprint, right? In those relationships. And so because of that, I have a vast network of sisters and people that they see me and I see them. So I started reaching out to some of my sisters who align with some of what I was thinking about. Of course, sometimes we sit in stories. As I check in on a sister and I might share a story, they share their stories, and I was like, okay, they get it. And I started enrolling some of my sisters so that we could move this forward. And it was still the AWDF USA. So over time, we started creating programs. And one of the projects that came under AWDF USA is the AfriWomen. So we created the AfriWomen Hangouts, and that was like the vehicle. It became that. And I remember I was sitting in my kitchen, I was talking to Moyatu Banya Kista, and we're trying to think about that. At the time, she was doing a lot of work with me, and we're trying to think about it, and then we settled on the name AfriWomen.
So that was you and Moyatu.
Yeah, we settled on that name.
I like that.
AfriWomen, but it wasn't the AfriWomen Network. It was just AfriWomen, and we're thinking about hanging out because that's what we're doing. We just hang out, right, and just speaking to community, right. So just hang out. So that became what we did, and then over time we wanted to tell the stories also, and the unfiltered journeys of African women. And so we created something called the Amplify Her campaign. Yes. We started telling stories of African women because we realized that nobody was telling those stories. And as you know, as a storyteller, you know that until the lion learns to tell a story, the story of the hunter will always be glorified.
Absolutely.
And so we have to learn to tell our stories. So we did the Amplify Her and identified different women and shared their story. And along the same line, we decided to create a mini podcast. Right. And it's a way of passing knowledge and all of that. And we called it the Diaspora Her. And I have to say, Moyatu, because she's in communications, she worked with a team of people to move that work forward. And we had people like Dr. Nana, people like Obiniwan Ponsa, Auntie Abby, Buzia, myself, and we all talked about different things ranging from identity to wellness to career transition, all anything that we knew people were looking for wisdom. So it becomes that well of wisdom, and that the podcasts are still there. You could go on there and access it on our website. It's still there, right? And it was 5 minutes, nothing long, but they were nuggets of wisdom, so that if you're looking for something, you could go on there. So that's how. So we created the Diaspora Her, the Amplify Her, and then along the same line, the AfriWomen Hangout. So we had these 3 programs that were running concurrently under AWDF USA, right? But one of the things that became also clear was that carrying the name AWDF, it was both a blessing and not a blessing, right? A blessing in the sense that it's an amazing organization, and the work that AWDF does, it's amazing, and it's great to be. Who doesn't want to be associated with the best things and the good things? I want to, right? You can name drop and say,
exactly,
AWDF, you can name drop. But the flip side of that was that people will be looking at us and thinking, because we carry the name AWDF, there was a bunch of money sitting and there to come in.
It's not for you, right?
To come and go, but we're more like a pass-through at this point. And we needed to, and there was also some confusion. So people would see AWDF and AWDF USA, and there was a lot of confusion, and we needed to really get things straight and clarify it. So as we thought about the way forward, I was asking myself, what can we call this? And the word that came to me was like, the AfriWomen Network. And so that's how we ended up with the AfriWomen Network, just as a way to create that clarity, to bring that clarity.
So it doesn't replace AWDF USA, does it?
Well, most of the work that we're doing was through the guys under the lens of the AfriWomen Hangout. That became a signature program.
Okay.
That became, so more and more, that was like a way to create our own identity. And so AWDF USA is registered in New York as a 501c3. So basically what we did was we did a renaming because the things that we had done, they
so you've renamed AWDF USA
and renamed
into the AfriWomen Network.
Yeah.
So, and I'm trying to get this clearly, will that, or would you say that replaced it?
Yes.
There you go.
So instead of now starting a different organization, we've been doing the work already this while.
It's just a different name now. And so you're still the pass-through.
We still have a relationship with AWDF where we continue. We have gone through like professional ways of signing an MOU and all of that, you know, really looking at all the technicalities of it. And so we still continue to partner with AWDF as a partner, but, you know, passing through. We have one major funder right now, and then a few others that continue to send resources
through AfriWomen
through AfriWomen and then we send it to AWDF. But right now, as it stands, AfriWomen is an independent entity on its own, renamed, rebranded, and doing its work
out of the AWDF.
Yes,
USA.
exactly.
So here's the question. It sounds a little technical. When you do that work as maybe a mini pass-through for them with the MOUs and stuff, would I be correct in saying that then the AfriWomen Network, even though it's a 501c3, you still get paid? No.
We don't get paid from anybody.
Not even the AWDF?
No.
So you do the work, but on a purely pro bono.
Yeah, well, we are still building this. So we rebranded last year.
Right.
In, I think it was February when we finalized the process. And so basically it's a new organization.
Right.
It's a year old, right, and a few months. It was always run by a committed group of volunteer personnel, including myself, right? And so that's how it continues to run. So now that we have that rebranding done and renaming done, now that we have institutionalized our programming, we have our strategic plan, we have our framework, our change framework, and we continue to clarify that and strengthen that. We are now also building a resource mobilization plan, and some of the programs that we have, those things now become evidence of the impact that we have, right? And we use that as a way to mobilize resources to say, look at the impact we are having. Even with
no funding.
With no funding, this is how important this work is. And the network is growing. We had, for the first time on African soil, on April 15th, we had the first ever AfriWomen gathering in Ghana. You know, just because I happen to be doing some work here. Auntie Adibuzia is here, and there are a number of women who are in the network. We have a WhatsApp group, and they all came together. Those who are in Ghana show up. And so our strategy, one of our strategy, is to leverage existing spaces and opportunities. So if, let's say, a member is in Uganda and they want to gather as an AfriWomen group, they can come together and gather. And so this was like the first one. almost like a pilot on the continent, right, to do that. And so in October, for example, I will likely be in Uganda for some work, and I'm planning on having an AfriWomen gathering. And then sometimes if there are other people in other spaces, for example, even across the US, those in New York or on the East Coast can gather. Those on the West Coast can gather. Those in the Midwest can gather. So beginning to start, this
putting a real emphasis on the idea of networking.
Exactly. The idea of a network, right? And creating the prototypes and the infrastructure for
So here's my
us
question, I'll try to make it the last question. I think the emphasis on the AfriWomen Network is the network, the word network, where we meet each other in spaces, whether virtual or in person. And we do exactly that. We network, right? So I need a B. Do you have a B? And another person says, yes, I have a B, but can I swap my B with an M because I need an M, so on and so forth. But do you see the AfriWomen Network at some point having a pool of resources where women would actually come to and get the real help? For example, if I needed to find something in Senegal or in Egypt or anywhere else in the diaspora, really, the first thing somebody would say to me is, check out the AfriWomen Network. Because if you go there, there will be I think you see my line of questions, so why don't you answer that?
So I love that question because I think we've been talking about the journey.
Right.
And now I want to sit us into, what, our work is.
Yes, thank you.
So in terms of the AfriWomen Network, the vision that we carry and we hold is that we are trying to create intentional, intergenerational, intercontinental, inclusive spaces where Black African women or women of African descent, right, gather and bring their collective wisdom, deploy their networks and their resources and their assets to meaningfully support each other.
Break that down for me. Pick any area and literally walk me through it with the words you just used.
So, again, the 4 I's, right? The intergenerational piece is important. The inclusive space is important. The intercontinental space is important. And then, what's the other one? Intentional. So everything we do, we are very intentional. We really sit through and talk through and engage all the voices,
right?
To really come out with even our programming. It's not something that we sit there and we come up with things in our head. We engage the women who are interested in this space. And there's something about the collective wisdom of women. When women sit in our collective wisdom, it changes everything. But because we don't have the spaces, so if you ask me the what of the AfriWomen Network, it is that we are creating spaces. We are making spaces available.
For example?
So that we can gather, and in those gatherings, we deploy, when we are sharing our stories, there's a lot of wisdom that emerges. And so sitting in that collective wisdom and beginning to draw and glean and learn from each other, it changes everything. When I'm talking to you and all of a sudden I can see myself in your story. All of a sudden I can empathize with what you're saying. All of a sudden I come alive.
For me, I think I'm trying to figure out how we go beyond the realization that, your story does help me, into how did it help me? Right. So is that part of the core values of the AfriWomen Network? And if so, then how? I'm looking, I think my story brain is looking for the structure or the vehicle on which that will run. As in, if somebody, I'm trying to find an example. So just recently, I think the government of Ghana has come up with a ridiculous idea, and you'll see why I say it's ridiculous, of providing free sanitary pads. I like the smile. Yes, that was good. Free sanitary pads to young women across the country. Right. And as brilliant as that is, my brain kept shouting, how? How? With what money? How? Are we going to build the factories so that these women can get the jobs and then make the sanitary pads in such a way that we're able to give it to the young adults for free? Do you see? So that the idea is big and lofty. We are giving everybody free sanitary pads, but where is the how? So that's what I'm looking for with the AfriWomen Network. Where is the how? And I know you have the how, so I am asking you for that.
There are a number of things that we are using as the vehicle, right? So, for example, one of our goals is to shift narratives.
Okay.
And we are doing that through storytelling.
Okay.
So, in fact, this
is
series
one of them.
that we are embarking on, this first phase of it is just to lay the foundation of a story in which the stories of AfriWomen will sit. Okay. Right. And so we even had, we had one event with you.
Yes.
Where our goal, if our goal is to become owners of our own story or authors of our own story, then we have to build the capacity
to be able to tell
of
those
AfriWomen to tell their own stories. In addition to building capacity, we have to facilitate access to spaces where their stories can be heard and shared. Right. And so what we are doing right now, and some of the work that we've done with you, is, I think we have a second part that we're supposed to do, is to build capacity, capacity building. So that is a vehicle, building the capacity, exposing AfriWomen through trainings and workshops and seminars on storytelling. How do you tell your story? What is the strategy? You know, whether it's public speaking, how do you do all of those things? So the practical things that we are going to do. So that's one. Another thing that we are doing, for example, this year, the 3 core pillars that we have, as I mentioned, includes community, wellness, and leadership development. This year, our focus is on wellness. That's not to say community is not important. Community happens anytime we gather, anytime we hang out. So that is always happening. But in terms of wellness, we have what we call the Rooted and Rising series. And it's about looking at our wellness from different angles. So we talked about currently the situation that we've had the first one, and it's all virtual. Currently looking at the times and seasons and discerning the times and seasons and how you take care of yourself given the things that are happening globally. Like, what's your world looking like right now? It's a simple question that would ask, what's going on in your world? And then you begin to hear the stories of where people are sitting, what's going on in their world. And as we share that, guess what happens? People might say, oh my God, we activate the networking and the resource allocation and sharing and the support systems. So somebody hears, oh, you know, I'm looking for a mentorship opportunity. Oh yeah, I'm connected to this person. And the next thing you know, it's like crisscross, and things have come alive. And tangibly, people are finding meaning, people are finding help, people are finding solutions, right? And activating them.
Okay, so the AfriWomen Network is a hub for help.
Yes. In fact, I call it the one-stop shop. The one-stop center, right? So if you think about our core values, we call it the CNA, right? So the first one being community, the second one being care. because we have to care for each other. The third one being creativity and innovation. We see ourselves as an innovation hub where ideas come alive, where collaboration gains momentum and activates ideas. And then we talk about the A's, where we amplify voices, where we sit in authenticity, right? Becoming owners of our own stories, bringing our full selves. And then we talk about the abundance, the mindset. And I want to speak just briefly on that abundance piece, because especially when you have women's spaces, you often hear women are their own worst enemies, blah, 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 blah. And we want to destigmatize, we want to de-stereotype all these things. And so when we talk about abundance, what we are saying is, we don't come together to compete. We come together to complement and to collaborate. We don't come together to sabotage. We come together to synergize and to support. And we don't come together to come and criticize people. We come to celebrate and care for each other. That is at the heart of the abundance, and that is what we are keen on at the AfriWomen Network. We carry this abundance mentality because for too long, we've all been socialized to carry a scarcity mentality. I call it the crabitis. You know crab? I call it crabitis, or the PhD syndrome.
Yes, the pull him down,
pull him down. And it's like, no, there is room enough for us.
Yeah.
And that you begin to see the abundance when you start sitting in spaces together, when we start having conversations and we start sharing our stories.
Yes.
You begin to realize, oh my God, there's a lot we are holding in our hands. And my friend Anakofi has a quote that I also love. He says, he was talking about Africa in general, but I like to apply it to our context. He says, in Africa, we sit on gold and we beg for brass. Right? And when I think about our spaces, when I think about even gathering, a lot of times we go around begging for, give me this, give me that.
When
but
the help is
when
right
we come
there,
together,
we just network.
We realize, oh my God, look at the gold we've been sitting on. That's why I talk about collective wisdom. When we sit in each other's stories and we begin to share our stories, and we have, with people like you, your help, training us, teaching us, how do we tell our stories? How do we present it? How do we speak up, in spaces? For some people, it might even be that they can't sit in front of a camera. How do you do that? Like, the more they become at ease with that, the more the wisdom flows. And the more we start to complement, and we start to see that there's more that connects us than divides us. Right? And so we are breaking stereotype, we are shattering assumptions, and we are saying, let's rewrite the story, let's shift the narrative. And especially being in the diaspora, we also have a unique opportunity to begin to embody what it means to be African. We are people of excellence. We are endowed with all kinds of resources, whether in our natural resources or in our intellectual capacity. But we've been told too long that we don't carry this, we don't have this, we don't know this. And I say no. It's time to shift those narratives
from each other.
That's why for me, when I talk about being a whole woman, I don't take anything for granted. Anytime I get the chance to be on a stage, I have to do it with excellence, because I know that it's not just about me. I'm representing a whole continent. I'm representing women. And so if I'm doing it, as we say in Ghana, if it has to be done, it has to be done well. So you bring excellence. So anytime you have the chance to stand somewhere, or you have an opportunity, you bring your full self. You bring your unapologetic self. You bring your grace and your elegance and all of that.
So
you
what
bring,
I'm
you
hearing,
come just as you are, right? And I want to create, I want us to create a community. Imagine, just imagine for a moment, a community of Black, African women, women of African descent, whether they are Afro-Latino, whether they are whatever it is, as long as they connect to their African identity, showing up in a space, bringing excellence, telling their stories with eloquence. I'm not saying that when I say eloquence, it doesn't mean you speak spr all the time, right? That's not what I mean. I mean authentically. Even if you can't speak spr,
but you
right?
are.
You can tell your story in a way that people want to say, tell me more. Like, I'm telling you a story and you're like, shut your mouth, right? That is the effect we want to have. Imagine deploying an army of women who tell their stories. And I think we have that opportunity to even create this archive where eventually we will have these stories documented, the unfiltered journeys of African women documented, that for generations to come, if they are looking for something on wellness or on career transitions or on motherhood or on sisterhood or self-leadership or on how to transform trauma, you know, how to navigate difficult conversations, because we have stories archived and in a place documented. They can just Google something, type in, I don't know, you know it, and they can access that information, and it becomes an eternal source of wisdom.
So
a
that's
well
the
of wisdom.
core of the AfriWomen Network.
Right, and that's one core.
One core.
One core.
Okay.
I mean, one of the other things we see is that the spirit of entrepreneurship is huge. And so there are those who have a lot of expertise being entrepreneurs. So how do we bring that together? How do we support creativity and innovation? And that, again, comes from sitting in with each other. You know, if I were to quote scripture, you know, the Bible talks about faith comes by hearing, and by hearing the word of the Lord, right? It's the same thing. We get to support each other to grow by sitting with each other and hearing each other, like listening, bringing what I call delighted attention and paying attention. So Zoe, tell me a little bit about what's going on in your world. What are you excited about? Like if you create these pods, little pods, sisterhood pods, and you are having intentional conversations where you are not sitting about there and thinking about, okay, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? You're just thinking about yourself, but you are listening for where there is alignment with your sister and saying, oh, you know, this issue you have, I think I know somebody who can be of help. And then you make the connection. Like one of my superpowers is to be a consummate networker. Like I will be sitting with somebody because I have that vast network. I have done the work to build it. So I'm talking to somebody and they might be sharing something, and then all of a sudden my brain just crosses and I say, oh, I know somebody to introduce you to. In fact, you and I had that experience when we met Dr. Kofi Osei-Kusi from the Pan-African Leadership Institute.
Yes.
And you had been looking to connect or something like that. And so we had lunch together.
Yes.
And as we were talking, he knew somebody that you wanted to get in touch with.
Yes.
And boom, right there, the connection happened. I can give you stories upon stories of connections that have happened like that.
Wow.
And people, you know, coming alive and living purposeful life. Because at the end of the day, even in my personal work, in my consultancy at MILT, my goal is to unleash potential and maximize impact by activating, you know, my network and leveraging the networks I have to support other people. And that's what I want us to see. So for entrepreneurship, there are so many women who are doing this work. One of my sisters, she actually sits on our board. Her name is Funlayo Alabi. She owns Shea Radiance. Shea Radiance can be found in about 400 Whole Food stores across the U.S.
Yeah.
You know, I actually went to her factory in Maryland to see the things that she's doing. and I've had Funlayo speak on different platforms. Sometimes she brings her products. I buy her products. I use her resources. So we begin to pour into each other, in meaningful ways. So that's another piece of the work that we are doing. The way we have been able to manage our work as a volunteer board is to really find people who are committed. I love a quote I told you about, that the power to lead comes from the commitment to serve. I don't go chasing people or begging people. People find themselves in the story of the AfriWomen Network.
Yes.
And for most of the people who are there, it's about the commitment to serve. That's what it is. And so they think about, what do I have in my hand?
What
And
can I give?
if this vision is something that I connect to, how do I bring myself into the space? So I don't go begging people and say, please, please come. No. People engage and they see what we are doing and they say, I want to be part. You are sitting here with me having this conversation and you are like, Mommy, I don't, when the right time comes, you can pay me. But for now, I want us to get these stories out. You are a typical example. Or I should say, if I were to use a big English word, quintessential. Right?
Quintessential
Afri-women.
Right, exactly, right.
So those are some of the stories that for me matter. And because of the intergenerational piece, we also look at that. And at some point, you asked me a question, I don't know when you asked me, how do you find the next, Maame and stuff, right?
No, well, it wasn't even a question, more of a statement.
Yeah.
When we were talking with Auntie Abby, and I was saying that you, now the onus lies on you to begin to find the next Maame, just like they were intentional with finding you, right? So it really wasn't even a question as much as it was a statement.
As I think about that, it's not about finding the next Maame, because then if you find the next Maame, then it's a bit truncated, right? It kind of cuts off the flow. For me, the powerful thing that I want to do is to create several Maames, echoes of myself, right? And so, for example, right now there are 3 of us who sit on the steering committee. Myself, Dr. Nana Ofusuama, who also serves as she calls it the CFOO, right?
CFOO,
so the financial officer and operations. And that woman, if I'm the right brain, she's the left brain. If I'm the left brain, she's the right brain. I mean, she holds it down for us. And then there's Obenewa Amponsa, who's also doubles as a chief strategy officer. And I remember, with Dr. Nana, I had invited her. Then in 2015, we had the 15th anniversary, I believe. Yes, in 2015, we had the 15th anniversary for AWDF. And so it was at the UN, and they decided that they wanted to host a gala, some sort of event. And so being AWDF USA, we supported them to plan that. And I invited Dr. Nana. And over time, as I had more conversations with her, I felt the leading. And I'm always led by the Spirit too. So I don't just...
they walk alone.
Yes. I got God, so something. What's that thing?
So you'll make it. Yeah, you'll be okay.
Right. So there was one day, if Dr. Nana were here, she would tell you the story. Anytime she tells that story, she has tears in her eyes. And I was sitting in my office, my home office, and I wrote to her and I said, sis, and she's family, because my husband, how do I describe it? Rana is family in the sense that my husband's aunt is married to her uncle.
Okay.
Okay, so she's
So
family.
there's long distance,
So
but it's still there.
She's family, you know. You know, we're Africans.
Yeah.
So I wrote to her and I said, sis, you know, I would love for you to join the AfriWomen, like AWDF USA, you know, and support and all of that. And at that particular time, she had just, you know, not resigned, but they were laying folks off from her job. You know, there was something going on, and not that Dr. Nana is exceptional. That woman is a brilliant mind, and she had just gotten off that job, and my email came just at that time.
Moment. Wow.
So she always tells me, this is not just by chance, but it's divinely orchestrated. And so when she shows up, because this is orchestrated in that manner, she brings everything. You have experienced that. I mean, even setting this up, all I had to do was just call her on the phone. She's like, she was driving, and in her car, she's like, I'm going to park, I'm going to do this. And all I did was just say, Dr. Nana, this is what we want to do. The decision is yours. And I mean, you can testify to how she delivers. Excellent, on time, professional. Like, she sent me something. She's like, I've written an MOU. And I'm looking at her like, huh? What? You did what?
Right.
You know, my brain wasn't even there. She's done it and then got the team that's helping us to shoot. Mauli and Co, you know,
to sign
that and got their input, and I'm looking at her, I don't know how you do it. So I'm always saying thank you to her, because I don't know how, and she holds a lot too in her personal life, but the way she shows up,
you don't even know.
I don't know, but I learned something from my mother about loyalty and the importance of investing in relationships. When I told her that I went to the Western region, my mom has a farm there that, you know, my mom is late now, and so we have to take care of it. But I remember when my mom was working on the farm, there was a young man at the time who was working with a company that was helping to get the farm going. And my mom had this gift of being able to get the gold, right? See the gold in people and call out the gold in people. So she can see you, and she will look at you and see beyond what she's seeing, to your potential and what you could become. That's a gift. So this man that was part of the organization that was working with my mom came in, and my mom started building that relationship. Fast forward, my mom passes away in 2013, and I was sitting there drinking my water and minding my business. He walks up to me and he says, I know you don't live in the country, and your sister is not in the Western region, she's in Accra. I'm going to quit my job with the main organization, and I'm going to manage the space, the farm for you. And since then, and he said to me, the way your mom treated me, you don't need to ask me anything. I'm here for you. And since 2030, never have I had an issue of somebody took something, and none. Sometimes he will even go out of his own way to invest his resources when, you know, it's needed. And I say that because I have learned that in terms of how I build my relationships.
So is that I'm trying to bring us back to the conversation of replicating yourself.
Yeah.
And then we talking about Dr. Nana.
Yeah.
All of that is
so
part
it's
of...
replicate myself using those values.
Okay.
In terms of how I invest in the relationships. So if somebody is coming in, it's not transactional, because you could easily get transactional, but it is transformative, it is intentional, and it is about making sure that even if you have to say it 1,000 times, letting your actions prove to people that you appreciate, that you see that what they are bringing to the table, and you going out of your way to invest in those relationships meaningfully. Every single person who is in the AfriWomen Network, I have a direct personal relationship. Some for longer, some for a short time, but for every individual who is in the network, I have a direct connection.
Which is in replicating.
That's right.
1,001
exactly.
mames.
Because imagine if we can have 1,000 of all women, doing that, it would be different.
Yes.
And then Obiniwa, who is actually my husband's second cousin, right? She says to me, well, she's like, Mommy, I don't answer to everybody, but when you call,
I answer.
And she said that to me so many times, and I wonder. But again, it's all about the kinds of investment I've made in my relationship with her. That sometimes it has nothing to do with AfriWomen. It's just about, sometimes she might call me and say, hey sis, there's a career thing I'm thinking about. What do you think? There's a job that somebody has presented to me. I need your wisdom. What do you think? Or she might say, I'm applying for some job, and do you know anybody there? And if I do, could you give me a reference? Then I do that. So sometimes it has nothing to do with AfriWomen work, but just seeing them as a human being. Because one of the things that we often lose in leadership is that you lose your personhood. Like for myself, I know it's very easy for me to lose my personhood because sometimes when people see you, they just see what they can get, right? And so it's very easy to even be on the giving end of that. And I don't want to treat people transactionally.
Right.
I don't want to see you just for, okay, so what can you bring to the AfriWomen Network? What can you do for me?
Rather, what can you contribute and take away?
Exactly.
At the same, so
exactly.
you're
what
dipping,
help do you need?
But you're pouring as well.
What help do you need? What help can you give? It's that reciprocity. So that becomes, that's one of the keys that I use to replicate Sarah. It's about authentically knowing people, investing in time. In fact, there's a young lady, her name is Alifa, and she found the AfriWomen gathering in Accra online.
Oh, wow.
I never, I don't know who she is, I never heard of her, like, I don't know.
Right.
And she came in.
Wow.
And after she came, we connected on WhatsApp. And she wrote to me and she's like, hey, I know you have a short time. I would love to connect. I would love to do, I'm building my career. I need wisdom and stuff. So today I was like, I'm going to be
doing something, but show up.
Show up. And she has shown up. And we're going to spend time. They're even just sitting here, having this conversation, witnessing that in itself, it's investment.
Wow.
And so making time, going out of your way to see people. At the end of the day, what we say at the AfriWomen Network is that we say, you belong here. We say, welcome home.
And that you belong
here. You
here.
belong here.
And your seat has been waiting for you.
Your seat has been waiting for you, and we see you.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, when we say you belong here, it means that this is a space where you are seen. When you are in this space, you'll be seen, you'll be heard, you'll be loved, you'll be valued, you'll be supported.
But you must show up.
And then the idea of your seat has been waiting for you is that we each have a role to play. And I can't sit on your seat because I am limited in my capacity in terms of what I can do. But if you recognize that that's your seat and you take your seat, something different happens.
Wow.
So, and just seeing each other and loving on each other and creating that. So that's the power of what we are trying to create.
Or not trying to. It's been created, and it's really beautiful to see. Now I'm just going to ask, because I asked Auntie Abby about this. She kind of she did touch on it a little bit about the first time she met you and a question she had asked you. Well, I'm starstruck with her, let's put it that way. And so when she shared that story, what I said to myself was, I really want Maame to share her part of the story of how they first met and how she must have been feeling. Hit me with that story. Where did it happen? As if I didn't know, because I know. But tell me again, where did it happen? And how were you feeling at the time when she asked you the question that she asked you?
Yeah. You know, one thing that I have learned about myself is, you know, sometimes you see people and there's this trepidation of like, you know, and you can't come close to them. But maybe I get it from my mom. I'm very audacious. Like, I see you as a human being. Of course, I will honor you. I respect you, but je ne sais quoi. I don't know, right? And I will walk up to people. I will like, I guess maybe it's my extroverted self that gives me this. People have asked me, where do you get your boldness from? I said, I don't know. Where do you get your... I don't know. It's just who I am. That's how God created me. So I will still have a crush on a few people, right?
But you'd
like
still
Idris
be
Elba.
bold. I know. Oh, God.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But, you know, I will walk into spaces and just hang out because at the end of the day, they are human beings. Right. I was holding a space for UNFCU, the United Nations Federal Credit Union. I was hosting their gala in New York, and the person we honored was Ambassador Thomas Greenfield. I believe that's her name. And she at the time was the U.S. representative to the UN. So very high level. So I'm holding the space. You know, I'm on stage, you know, do my thing, and we honored her. She came up, you know, her security detail came to the, you know, they did all the security stuff. So I'm just like, okay, if she's here, then, you know, everything has been taken care of. It. So I'm standing up, and then in my head something says, call her and bring her up so that we wow her. You know, do the wow, wow, wow. And all of a sudden, everybody's face went like, I was like, oh snap, Mommy, what did you do? And then she asked, so I said, would you please come up? I want us to honor you. And then she's like, me? I said, yes. Everybody was looking at me like, what is she doing? You know, I thought they were going to fire me after that.
Right.
Right. But she comes up, so I'm on stage with her, and we're, you know, I teach them the wow, where you go, wow,
And then
wow, and then wow.
Yes.
But then, you know, we use that word often, but when people wow us, we just stand there, we don't know what to say. Like in Ghana, when somebody says, oh, you are beautiful, oh, that was great, they will just be standing there looking at you like, yes, it's true. You say, yes, it's true. Somebody says, Zoe, you rock. You say, yes, it's true. Of course, you give glory to God. It's all of that.
But
yes, it's true. I am powerful. Yes, it's true. I am beautiful. Yes, it's true. I am confident. You know, yes, it's true. And so you have to take it in. So anytime people say, wow, you have to take it. I remember I was in South Africa.
No. Finish that story. You're jumping around a bit. I want to hear that.
Coming back, don't worry.
Okay.
I was in South Africa, and, you know, they were doing the wow. I was doing push-ups and all of that. So just to give you an example of how I received my wow. So she comes up.
You're doing push-ups for the wow.
I was doing push-up. I have photos. I have evidence of push-ups in Johannesburg. Okay, so she comes up. I teach them and we do the work, and she loved it. Like she felt the love. It was sincere. It was joyful, and you could see, you know, before she wasn't sure. But
suddenly she had brightened
gave
up.
Gave away to like a grin on her face. And, you know, at the end I sang, and just, it was phenomenal. But imagine if you just show up and, you know, you just allow your instincts to hold you back. And I think sometimes we miss out on very important relationships and opportunities because we allow our fear to get in the way. So anyway, going back to meeting Auntie Abby. So that's how I will show up. So I still had a little bit of that there, but not like, you know, like you who was like, I'm like, Zoe, she's there. Talk to her. Don't talk to me. I'm not her mouthpiece. She can speak for herself, right? So I see her in Dakar at the African Feminist Forum, which is organized under AWDF. They started it. This is 2010 in Dakar. And somehow we got connected. And it was a privilege, definitely a privilege and an honor to be connected to her just because of her work and what she represents. So it was a joy for me to meet her. So I meet her and she's like, what's your name? And I say, my name is Maame. And Auntie Abby has this way of like, she goes, Maame, what? And I'm looking at her like, okay, now cool down, right?
It's not that serious.
Yeah, you know, but the way she said it, but you know, and that was my initial encounter. But you could easily like just take that and not engage. But you know, I told them Maame Afon, you know. My name Afon is an Ahanta name. I'm from like the Western region, Shama, Sekendi, you know, Disco, so that area. So, and I'm named after my grandmother. So there are very few of us who carry that name. So that's how she and I met. And after that, you know, we kind of continued to engage through AWDF USA. I would meet her in different spaces. And over time, I have built an incredible relationship with her. Like sometimes I see how she tells me, Mommy, I'm so proud of you. And it's music to my ears. It inspires me. And she also leads by example in the sense that anytime I call her, she's there. When I had to make difficult decisions, even regarding the rebranding and rename, she's the one who go to. And even her, because she started with AWDF USA, she was attached to it. So I had to walk her through the process of letting go of the name AWDF USA to embrace AfriWomen. So I did the rebranding process wasn't something, it took us years to get there. We had to walk that journey and bring people along. And I think that's a big part of leadership. A great leader knows how to bring people along. You don't leave people behind because it's very easy to have the vision and the dream and just run with it. But if you run with it and you don't bring people along and you leave them behind, what's the point? You really haven't done much. And I think that's something that is very true for the AfriWomen. That in terms of my goal as a leader is to bring everybody who comes, is to be able to enroll them in the vision and leave the vision in their hand so that they can run with the vision as they see fit in their capacity, in their giftings, using their talents, but sitting in sisterhood and in the collective wisdom of the community.
Wow. Yeah. That is a lot. And I know that at AfriWomen, the work is definitely been cut out for you and for everybody that's coming along. I certainly am one of them. So today I want to take time out, just as we're about to close, to say thank you for continuing to hold the space as far as you've come, as long as it has been. It almost feels as if this is just the beginning of the real work that's being done. For me, the most important thing here is the fact that you can show up as yourself, as authentic as you are, as crazy as you are, and nobody would think you're crazy because they would say, wow, we've been waiting for you. I think that's important. And so I want to say thank you for the AfriWomen Network. I think we're doing important work. But also thank you for agreeing to sit on this couch with us and sharing your story. We're calling this her story, sharing your story. But also thank you for being a founding mother, because you really are. Should I call you the founding mother? Because I feel like the other two we just spoke with, for lack of a better term, we should call them the founding grandmothers. Or maybe we have to give them another name, but you really are the founding mother of the AfriWomen Network.
I call myself the vision keeper.
Yeah, but I like founding mother.
Okay.
You know, vision keeper is cute and nice, but founding mother almost feels like, you know, founding fathers. Yeah, what's that? We're the founding mothers.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Yes.
But yes, you definitely are the vision keeper. And we're grateful that you're doing that. So keep doing what you're doing, because a lot of women find a lot of help with the AfriWomen Network. I, for one, have definitely found a lot of help with the AfriWomen Network. I am looking forward to you, because I know you're watching me. I'm looking forward to you making a choice, a bold choice, to be a part of a sisterhood so great your head will spin. Find us, the AfriWomen Network. Just Google. Go to just any space and find us. Be a part of us. Don't just be a part of us, become a part of us, as in bring your talent, your skill, your network quotient. Your seat has definitely been waiting for you, just like Maame has been saying, and we see you. We see you. And who knows, in the very, very near future, we might be coming to you for your story, because we want to keep your space at the AfriWomen Network. My name is ZoeBaraka. I've been sitting in the couch with the venerable, absolutely incandescent, incredible Maame Afon Yelbert-Sai, and she is the vision keeper of the AfriWomen Network. We'll see you next time with another AfriWomen from some part of the world. We don't know where, but we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.